Hey guys, I'm Odyssey, and today I got something I want to show you that I call the half dock. It's an automatic minecart chest filling station that will fill a minecart chest to a specific amount and then automatically send it away once it's been filled to that amount. Now there are piston versions that exist that do the same thing, and they work very well, but the reason I've uploaded this is because I found a way to make it one wide. So that way you can put a lot of them right next to each other. I can see this being useful in situations where maybe you want more than one minecart chest filling up at a time, or maybe you're just limited on space and can use a one wide version. Now, the way I've made this one wide is I've used a little trick, and that is when a detector rail is on a half slab, it will not power the adjacent powered rail. Normally, if you were to have this detector rail on a full block, as soon as the minecart got high enough to activate the detector rail, it would power the powered rail and then just send it over the top and it would get stuck up here. But this little trick allows you to stop halfway in between both, activating the detector rail at the same time as being stopped on the powered rail. That's also why I call it the half dock, because it kind of just ends up halfway in between both of them. And as you can see, when it gets to the right amount, it will let the minecart go, and there it goes. So the way this works is that while the minecart chest is right here in between the detector rail and the powered rail, power is being pulled from the minecart chest by this comparator, and the strength of that signal is dependent on how many items are in the minecart chest. So all you have to do is extend the redstone long enough so that it takes a certain signal strength in order to reach the back of this repeater, which puts power into this powered rail and sends the minecart away. So for example, right here, this takes a signal strength of 2, whereas over here I've extended out the redstone enough to where it would take a signal strength of 6. So this minecart chest has a signal strength of 6 worth of items, and this one takes a signal strength of 3. So this minecart chest was sent away with a signal strength 3 worth of items. And that's basically how it works. You just keep on, you extend the redstone out long enough to where you get your desired signal strength. Now it does get a little bit cumbersome for the higher signal strengths, but it does allow you to keep everything wide, or one wide. So yeah, so that's, oh, didn't mean to throw that. Uh, so that's the usefulness of it. Now there is another way to calibrate where you want the minecart chest to take off at, other than just extending the redstone out, and that is using a two-wide version that relies on comparator subtraction. This can be a lot more useful for the the higher signal strength, so you don't have to go out so far. You can just subtract a certain signal strength from the comparator. So what you would do is you would figure out first what signal strength you want the minecart chest to take off at, and then you subtract one signal strength less than that. So it would require one signal strength more than what you're subtracting to send power to this redstone, which gets picked up by these repeaters and sends the minecart away. So for example, right now I want this minecart chest to take off when it's completely full, or it has a signal strength of 15. So what I'm going to do is subtract a signal strength of 14. And you can take a little shortcut for this particular one just by taking redstone from the detector rail and putting it into the side of the comparator, and that will subtract a signal strength of 14. So I've got this minecart chest filled up all the way except for one inventory slot, and so this should fill up completely, and then as soon as it does, be sent away, because it will have strong enough power to power this powered rail, and there it goes, and we have a full inventory. So that's a little shortcut you can do for the full minecarts. But what if you want less than that? Like, let's say you want the minecart chest to take off at a signal strength of 10. Well, then you would just use a dropper to calibrate where you want the minecart chest to take off at. Again, you would figure out where you want, what signal strength you want the minecart to take off at, and then subtract one less than that. So in this example, I want the minecart chest to take off at signal strength 10, which is just below 2/3 inventory. So I'm going to put enough items in this dropper to subtract a signal strength of 9. And I'll go ahead and do that example. This should take off right before it gets to 2/3 inventory. I think about like 8 on the last slot. 9, yeah, like that. So just under 2/3 inventory. And so that's what you would do. Just put enough items in here to calibrate it. Now you can put the two wide versions right next to each other with a one wide gap, like I did over here for the one wide versions. But the problem is that they all have to have the same signal strength, because Whatever you're subtracting from one is going to interfere with the other comparators and subtract from them as well. So that's a problem if you want them to be separate signal strengths. But if they're all the same, it doesn't really matter because you're subtracting the same signal strength from all the comparators. So for example, right here, I have these all set to take off at a full inventory, and the minecart chest on the left and the right are empty, so they don't have enough items to take off, but the one in the middle does, and you'll see that it doesn't interfere with the minecarts on the left or the minecarts on the right. So that's another thing you can do. Just make sure that you want all the signal strengths to be the same, but it can be a lot more convenient for the higher signal strengths as opposed to taking the redstone all the way out and back in. Alright guys, so the next thing I want to talk about is speed, because anytime you're dealing with stopping a minecart on a powered rail, speed's always an issue. But keep in mind we're stopping on a powered rail on an incline as opposed to like a powered rail on a decline. So you have a lot more give, or you have a lot more leeway with the speed. It's not as touchy, but if you go crazy with the powered rails, at some point you will get too much momentum and end up stuck on top of the detector rail. What I've found is that as long as you put a normal, efficient spacing between powered rails, like you would normally do in a survival world, it's going to work every time. For example, this one over here, I've had going since the very beginning. I've started this tutorial, and it's one of the first things I built in the world, and it's worked every time. Yeah, just put a normal spacing between powered rails and you'll be fine. And also make sure to put one right in front of the ramp to make sure that you go high enough to activate the detector rail. But you have a wide range of speed to work with, and it shouldn't be a huge issue. Alright guys, so the last thing I want to talk about is that you're probably wondering, since this is one wide, can you stack these right next to each other with no gap at all? And the answer is you can, but there are a couple restrictions. So I'll go over here where I've put 4 of them already right next to each other. And the first restriction is that they all have to be the same signal strength, and that's so that they don't interfere with each other. For example, all 4 of these are at calibrated to signal strength 2, and which is just under 2 stacks or 2 unstackable items. And each one of these minecarts on the left and the right have 1 unstackable item in them, so they're both putting out power, but it's too weak to power their own power rail. However, this minecart in the middle has none, but 2 of them will be put into it from the hopper, and you'll see that the minecart in the middle only powers its own powered rail and doesn't activate the powered rail to the left or the right. And the reason that is because by the time it has a strong enough signal strength to send itself away, it does not have a strong enough signal strength to power the powered rails on the left or the right. Oop, didn't mean to do that. So that's why they all have to be the same signal strength, so they don't interfere with each other. Now the other restriction is a bit of an oddity if you don't mess with parallel tracks that often, and that is that this only really works in the east and west orientation, or the west and east orientation, either way. And that's because when they're east and west, or west and east, the minecarts don't interfere with each other at all. They don't push each other around, or they don't collide with each other, which is what's supposed to happen. But the north and south version, when you try to put tracks right next to each other, north and south, all these weird little annoying bugs start happening with minecarts that aren't supposed to happen, and it's always been there. Like the minecarts start pushing each other around, they'll collide with each other even though they're on separate rails. Like right here, they're getting pushed away even though they're on an unpowered powered rail. Yeah, just stupid little frustrating things like that that have always been in the game, and there's really no way around it. So if you want to do this, it works fine, but make sure that it's in the east and west orientation and you have all the signal strengths the same. And that's pretty much the only 2 restrictions. And yeah, I think that's the last thing I wanted to show you. Like I said at the beginning, there exist already piston versions that do the same thing, but I figured a one wide version might be useful for something. Someone might find a use for it. And hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, thanks for watching.